Hello and welcome to my presentation. My name is Roland and I'm very happy to present you this session to you. In this topic, I would like to show you how to can access Hyperledger Fabric data with the Node.js SDK. And last week we have seen how we can install Hyperledger Fabric, and we have started a little bit to play with the pre-installed chain code example 02. And today I would like to use the same network and the same chain code and build a Node.js application around this. In the first part of my presentation, I will give you some theoretical basics, and especially from the developer point of view. So I tried to focus really on the developer point of view and not so much on the administrator point of view, and also not on the, I think, identity management point of view and so on. But we are looking a little bit in the identity management world, but not so much. And yeah. So, and in the second part of this presentation, I will show you how you can write an Node.js application, how you can enroll your identities, how you can inspect these identities, and I will show you what do you need to connect to your network and how you can write such an application. Yeah. So first, this is the goal of this session. So in the first part, we will see a little bit theoretical thing. And then the second part, we start to build an application. And the first thing, what we need is an identity. And this identity must be enrolled, or we need an identity for our wallet. And for this, we can use also the Node.js SDK. And we will use this in a CLI command line form. And I will show you how we can use this predefined scripts. All these scripts are in the Fabric samples, and we will copy these scripts and modify a little bit so we can use it in a more general way. And then we will write a short REST API with Express.js to interact with the existing chain code. So that's a short overview. The first step will be you need an identity, because Fabric is a permission blockchain and everything is based on an identity. So that's an important part to understand what is an identity and how you can get this identity. And it's sometimes important to see what is in an identity. So we have to inspect these identities. And from the developer point of view, it's sometimes not so easy to inspect these identities. And we can also check if this identity is valid. And when we can read this identity in a clear way, then we can look if this identity is valid or if this identity has any problem and so on. So from the developer point of view, it's really interesting to see which identity you really use. And that's an important part. And the second important part is the connection profile. So the connection profile is something like a map from your network. And we have to see what is in the connection profile, how can I create this connection profile, and especially in this example. So we use the build your first network script, and this script will create for you these connection profiles in different ways. So, and we have to inspect this and we have to see what is in this profile. So this is also an important part. And then we are going to develop these REST API. I will paste this on Express.js. So that's a standard or default REST system, which we can use very easily to build such an API. And we have to test a little bit our endpoints. And for this, we can use Mocha in combination with the NPM test environment. But it shouldn't be a real testing. So we will use it to replace Postman or curl, for example. And yeah, To do this, we have some technical or general requirements. So from the developer perspective, of course, we need a running Fabric network. So we have to start our network again. We have to generate our artificial, we have to generate our crypto material, and then we have to start the network. And in this process, the chain code is installed and also instantiated. And that's our basic. And this is a requirement when we don't have a running network and we don't have a chain code, we cannot query something from the Node.js side. And the next thing we need an editor to write our application. So in my example, I will use Visual Studio Code, but you can use every editor of your choice. And in my specific scenario, I will use the same digital ocean droplet for the Hyperledger Fabric network, but I work locally with my laptop, and I use, but all source files should be edited on the droplet and on the virtual server. And to do this, I will use a Visual Studio Code extension, the remote development extension. So that's a pretty cool thing because I can work remotely, but for me, it's like if I work local in my local environment. Yes, of course, we need Node.js for this, and Node.js version 10 and 12 is supported. And as we have seen in the last session last Saturday, we have installed Node.js 10 for this, and we have also the corresponding npm tool for this. So these are our technical requirements to do this. And then we need an identity. That's really an important part, and we need this identity in our wallet, in the local wallet, and we need the connection profile. Here you can see a more general view about the single development steps. And as I have mentioned, we need the connection profile. And we need an identity. And to get one identity, we have, I think, 3 possibilities. And we have here option A. This is the case when you have already enrolled a client identity. And then you can add this existing identity to your local wallet with the Node.js SDK. And this is provided to you in the Fabric examples through a script which is called add-to-wallet.js. Later we will see where the script lives, and we copy this in our CLI directory, and we do some modifications that we can use it in a more general way. And so that's the way which I'm going to show you today because of the time. So we have to be very quickly because it's not so much time to do this. And the second option is when you have access rights to the Fabric CA, and if this is the case, then you can enroll an admin identity. And with this admin identity, you can use the register user script. Both scripts are located into the fabcar example. We will copy both files as well. And in this register user script are 2 processes. The first process is always to register a user, and the second process is to enroll a user. And that's everything the same for all identities. It doesn't matter if it's a client, this is a peer, this is an orderer, whatever. And this is all in this script. So that's the second option. And the third option is a way when you're going to use also a command line tool, Fabric CA client. And in this way, you also need to have the admin user and the admin credentials for this Fabric CA. And then you can enroll a new identity from type client. And with this, you can use the script from option A to import this in your local wallet from your Node.js application. In the slides, you will find for option B and option C the way code snippet, and we can discuss this a little bit later if it's done. So I think that's really interesting, and how you can inspect such an identity and what is to do to get an identity into this wallet. And the second step is here to develop the Node.js application, as I have mentioned. And the third step would be that you develop a front-end application which consumes the REST API data. And for this, you can use Angular, Vue.js, PHP, also Node.js or whatever. But this part is not part of the session today because that's a little off topic, and also there is no time to do this now. So some general points to note. So this is basically the same I have said. Here you find in my slides always links to the official documentation. And but one important point is the first point. So you have to install how the application, the Fabric application work, how this process is going, and this is an important point where we should look a little bit deeper in this. And for this, I have created a short diagram where we can see how our small application sent an transaction proposal and how this works. And this is a very high level overview of this. And you see here, we are here now as a Node.js developer. We develop a backend application. And when we try to submit a proposal to the blockchain, that means that we are going to use to store something in the blockchain. We are going to change the state of an item or of an asset or of an whatever you name it. Then this process happened. And the first thing what the Node.js application need is the wallet and the connection profile. So these are really two important parts. So the wallet is nothing else than a folder, and in this folder you have different identities, and the identity is something like the credentials to a database, username and password. When you come from the web development side, then you have also to use credentials for the connection to a database or any other service. And the connection profile is also important because the connection profile is something like a map, and the Node.js SDK will use this connection profile to find the peers, to find the organizations, and so on. So we will see that a little bit later. So these are both important parts for the Node.js application. And when the Node.js application sends a request, then he sends, this is done through the Node.js SDK, and the Node.js SDK did the heavy work for you. So when we submit something, then the Node.js sent the transaction to the endorsement peers, and the endorsement peers check the transaction, sign the transaction, and send. And if the transaction is okay, the endorsement peers send their response back to the Node.js application. And depending on the chain code policy to the endorsement policy, the Node.js SDK knows how many peers have to sign this application, has to sign this transaction. And if all transactions signed, which should be signed, then the Node.js SDK sends this request to the orderer, and the orderer put it in the queue and checks again, and then when everything is fine, then it distributed to all peers. And as you know, the peers are divided into two different peer types. So the first one is the endorsement peer. This is something like when you install chain code and when you install instantiate this chain code on a peer, that is called endorsement peer. And the second type is the committing peer, commitment peers. And this is a peer, they only hold the ledger data, but they don't have a chain code installed, and you cannot query also a committing peer. And when this step is done, the peers will notify also the Node.js SDK, and when everything is fine, the Node.js SDK send a response back to the Node.js application and say, okay, everything is fine, and the transaction is done. So, and all the heavy lifting here now is done through the Node.js SDK. And in the later slides, I will show you how less you need to do a query to evaluate the transaction or to submit a transaction proposal to the blockchain, and all this cryptographic material, the signing process, and so on is done through this Node.js SDK. So that's really a cool thing to know. And this slide is when we're going to develop an application in the Fabric world. So we are a little bit coupled to the chain code and to the network. So we have to know our network, and we have to know which chain code, which contract we are going to use, what is there, what are the functions from this contract, and what are the organizations. Do we have a certified authority? Do we have peers? Do we have a CouchDB involved, and so on? So it's from the developer perspective, it's important to know what is the chain code for. And in our example, we have used the pre-installed chain code, and this is called chain code example _2. And this has a simple functionality. He has an actor A and an actor B, and both can send a certain amount of units between these actors. And this is basically the functionality from this chain code. And important here is also the endorsement policy. And the endorsement policy in this example is with the end parameter, with the end operator. So that means that at least one peer of the organization 1 and one peer of the organization 2 have to sign and endorse the transaction, and then the transaction is valid. So when we shut down organization 2, for example, then we cannot send a transaction to this network because of the fact that the organization 2 doesn't have any endorsement peer ready. But when we change this to an OR operator, then it would be okay when organization 2 would be down. So, but this is only for the overview. So we have to know a little bit about the network. And then the connection profile. So as I have mentioned, the connection profile is something like a map. So we will see, I will show you what is in the connection profile. And we see this is, we can find peers, we can find orderers, we can find certified authorities, and so on. So this is an information which the SDKs need to find the peers, to find the organization. Because in the connection, when we build the connection in the script, we will see that there is a discovery service, and by default, this discovery service is turned to true. And that means that based on the connection profile, the Node.js SDK knows where the peers are, where the Fabric CR is, which TLS certificate is used, and so on. So, and you can do a little bit on modification, and you can control a little bit what should the Node.js SDK use for the network connection. And this is important hinweis for myself. So when we use the Build Your First Network example, then it's that we have to generate the new crypto material. And every time when we recreate this crypto material, then also the certificates will be created new. And also the TLS certificates will be created too. And when we will later see that into the connection profile is the TLS certificate in a base 64 encoded way, as a text stored. So when we copy this connection profile, then and later when we create a new one, then the copied version is wrong. So in this case, it's better to link to the file in the project directory where we start the Fabric network, because the names are always the same, but only the certificates in this file will change. So, but we will see this a little bit later. And yeah, the wallet is a simple thing from the development side. So we can think of a wallet, it's simple, a folder in this way. And in this folder, we can have different identities, and that's pretty cool. So we can import different identities, and then we can play with these identities, and we can say, okay, we will try a connection with the identity admin, and we will try connection with the identity user one or user anything. It doesn't matter. So in this wallet, we can manage, or we can organize different identities, and also to different networks. So, and how we can inspect this, we will see a little bit later. But so from the theoretical aspect, there are different types of wallets. So in our example, we will use the file system wallet. So this is basically a folder, as we have seen. Yeah? And this is, according to the documentation, this is the most common place to store the wallets. But there are also others. So there are different scenarios, and for different scenarios, you can have different wallet types. So you can have an in-memory type, you can have a hardware security model here, and you can also use CouchDB to store your identities. But this is the rarest form of wallet storage. So for now, we will use the first one, the file system wallet, but keep in mind, there are also other wallets which you can use, depends on your scenario. And yeah, so, and with this, we can switch to the practical time. And when we develop an application in this scenario, so we will use the build your first network script. Then we have to first create the crypto material. In the second step, we have to start the Fabric network. So then we have these pre-requirements that we have a running network, and we have an installed chain code and an instantiated chain code, which we can use. And then the next step that we need an identity. So we will see in this step how we can use these predefined Node.js scripts to create an identity in our wallet. And we will also see where the new created connection profiles live, and how we can connect and use this later in the application. And for this, I have developed a REST API, and you can have this the source code from this project is on GitHub, so you can clone it, and yeah, you can try it. And I have maybe I have a small homework for you. So one functionality is not implemented in my example. So, and then when you would like to try it, when you try, you can try to implement the missing functionality. But when it comes to this point, I will show you to this. So, okay. Now I have to switch a little bit. So as I have mentioned, for this I use Visual Studio Code, and I use this remote extension, and that's really pretty cool. So I think that's one of the best features I have seen in the last years, because there's a general problem when it comes to develop with Fabric. So you have to edit a lot of configuration files, and you have to do this always in a VI or in Nano or in a small editor with a small view and so on. And I've tried different possibilities to come around this. I've used Samba to share these files. I've used other file systems to share these files. But all this come with a little pitfalls, and it's always difficult when they lose the connection, and so on. So, and with this, I tried this way since 2 months. And I think that's really cool, and it's very easy to use this extension. And I can work here in this way. It's like I have installed Fabric on my machine, and it's not installed remote on any server in the world. Okay. So first, I will try this now hands-on. So I will show you the steps step by step, but I will copy some related source code snippets from the GitHub repo into the Visual Studio Code Editor to be a little bit faster, so that we can see this in 1 hour, everything. So, okay, so the first step, what we need is we have to check that no Fabric network is running. So we see, okay, no Docker container is running, and also no Docker container is exceeded. So this leads sometimes to a small problem when volumes, or some can also check the volumes. So good. So volume, so no volume is available. And then I will use the first network. So I will use the first network and copy this because when we something change in this scenario, then we don't lose the original information. So that's also, it's a small security step from my side. So and then we can switch in this folder. This is the Hyperledger Study Circle First Network project. And the first thing we do is, when we start the Fabric network, we have to generate our crypto material. And this can be done in a very easy way. So we can use the build your first network script and to use the generate command to generate this crypto material. And there are a lot of defaults. But we can override these defaults, and the channel we can override with a C param here, and we can give this network our own channel name. So, and I will call this channel 1.
Sorry, Roland, can you zoom in,
yeah.
please?
Sorry?
Can you zoom in?
Oh, of course, 1 moment.
Thank you.
So, is it better now? Can you see it better?
Yes, yes, it's right.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, so now we have generated our crypto material. This crypto material lives in the crypto config directory, and you can inspect this with the tree command. So this one, I think that works. So, okay. So, okay. Now you can see this. These are the folders. Yeah, all crypto material is here installed. And for us, interesting, we will see that a little bit later, is this part here. So these are pre-configured or pre-installed users. So when we use this script, then an admin and a user one will be generated per default. And we can use this identity to import it in our wallet. And also for the organization too, the same. So, and yeah, so And with this, we can start our network. And we can do this also with the build your first network command and the command up. And we use also the parameter C with the channel 1. And the parameter A is important in this position because this parameter starts also a certified authority. But if you don't use this parameter, no certified authority will be started. And in this way, for organization 1 and for organization 2, the certified authority will be started. And we can use these both certified authorities later when we try to enroll an admin identity and we enroll other identities for our client application. So these are important steps here now. And then if everything is okay, the network should start. And when this network boots up, also the chain code will install and the build your first network script has also end-to-end tests. So that take some moments. And now I did a small mistake because I did not start the terminal multiplexer. So now we have to wait. One moment. But we can skip this, so it's not funny to see this. So, but we can start the process again. We remove this, we clean this up, and we can. I think I have a session already. Max LS. We have one terminal multiplexer session here, so I can use it. So, okay, so now it will be a little bit easier. So in the same way, we should see our Hyperledger start the first thing, and then we can generate it again, and everything should work. So this is a good point. So now you see here the timestamp. Yeah? This is the connection profiles, and these connection profiles you will the script will generate it in a JSON format and then a YAML format. And with every generation process, these scripts will be generated new. So when we start this, we will see later there's an auto timestamp to confirm this. Down there, see here. As you see, the timestamps are different, and because of this, we should link to this file when we do practice and we try different configurations and so on. So that's a good point. So, and then we can start this again. And then I hope it will start. Okay, so I think so we have to clean up everything. Okay, so then we did a step again. And we can start the network again. Now it should work. So, okay. And with the multiplexer, we can switch in a different panel. And while this network boots up and does his tests, we can go ahead and do some basic steps for our application. So, and the first thing we have to do is we have to create a new project directory. I will call this here application Hyperledger study circle and switch into this application. So this will be our project directory for the Node.js application. And we need some folders. So we need the CLI folder where we'll copy our scripts for the identities, and we need a test folder where we can fill in our specs for the Node.js test, for the endpoint test, and we need a wallet folder where the identities will be stored. So all three folders are created now, and because that we use npm, so when we use npm, we can make an npm project, and we can make usage of such functionality like the tests and like the package JSON document. So we need some dependencies, and for this, it's very easy to create a new npm project. We can use the defaults for this. And then we will have also the package JSON file. And then we can show, here we should have this directory. So I will open this again. Sorry. And here we can see our project directory. CLI, test, and wallet. All are empty, and here's the package JSON file. And okay, I see the network is ready. So we see everything is okay. It should be fine. So let us check if all containers are running. With Ctrl B, Q, and 0, we can switch back in the panel 1. And with Docker PS, we can show, okay, there are some containers running and everything is fine. Q1, we can switch back. So, and the next step is that we have to install some dependency. And we need some dependencies for development, and we need some dependencies for the application itself. And we can, I copy this in this package JSON file, and you see we need the express for this demonstration, and we need the Ferric CA client Node.js module, and we need the Ferric network module, and both in the 1.4 version. So when you look to the documentation, you will find two versions, the 1.4 version and also the 2.1 version. And I think that when we use the network 1.4, we have to use also the Node.js client 1.4. So the minor versions, I think it doesn't matter. So I don't only bug fixes, but it's important that you have 1.4. And for the dependencies, for the dev dependencies, we will use Mocha to to test our application to the endpoints, and we will use the package supertest to do the REST API calls. And later we will fill in here the npm test, the test section, where we can start our tests also through the script. But for this will come a little bit later. So now we have this ready, so then we can install these dependencies. This is done by the command npm install. And now all needed node modules will be installed in the project directory. It should take some seconds now. And when we develop a Node.js application, then we can test our running system, but this is a process. Node.js is a process, and the server needs to be in a running state. So, but when you change your files and you're going to, and you want to see if your change works perfect, then you have to restart your application. So, and you have to do it by hand. And that's not really funny when you do it every time. And for this, there's a cool NPM project. It's called NodeMoon, and we can install NodeMoon. This will do the job for us. So in a global way, so that when we use this parameter G, then the NPM models will be stored globally on your machine, and then we can use it in every project. So, but when you come from the Node.js developer side, you will know this, I think, so because that's really known in the community. Okay, so I think with that we have installed. You see here we have the Node model file, and when you look into this, you will see a lot of you will see a lot of files and directories. But that's okay. So the next step is to get an identity. So, and for this, we will go in the CLI folder. And as I have mentioned, all scripts are pre-installed on your machine. And these scripts are installed in the few examples in different projects. So in the commercial paper project, you will find a script that is called add to wallet.js. And we copy this script in our CLI directory. And we do the same with the enroll admin script. And this is located in the fabcar example. And the second, which we need now, is the register user script. And this script is also located in the fabcar example. So now we have 3 JavaScript files. And with these 3 files, we can create an identity, or we can import an identity. And as I've mentioned earlier, I would, in the first step, I will use the option A to create an identity with the add to wallet script. And this is the predefined script. So a little bit modification. So, and with this script, with these simple steps, we can use an existing identity to import this identity in our local wallet and to use it for our connection. And I do a little bit modification on this. I will use a config object. And with this config object, I can configure the key parameters, the key values from this script. So when we use this config object, then we can change all relevant parts of the identity import on a single point, and then we can use this script in an easier way for other identities, for example. So, and here we have to modify a little bit and adjust a little bit. So as we can see here, the script is very easy. you see we have a short import section, and we say here we import the file system wallet. So because we are using the file system wallet, as I've mentioned in the slides before, and all this comes from the Node module fabric network. Also the X509 wallet mixin, which is responsible for the identity creation later. So that's the only fabric related part. So this part, this standard Node.js elements here, and this is the only part which we need, especially for the fabric network. And this is one thing from the script. So this is a fixture. So to fully the path here, and we have to correct the path a little bit that we find this. So, and we have to correct this path here, and first network. And for our position here, we have to check if this path correct. So we can check this a little bit. So we have fabric samples, and we have HSC. So this should be the correct path on this side. So we have to modify this. So to fix this, then we can check it. Again, and it doesn't work. Fabric samples, HSC, first network. Everything's wrong here. Maybe a small typo. So now it works. So this path is now correct. So the second thing what we have to adjust is the wallet path. So with the file system wallet class, which we have imported here, we have to say where should our wallet live, and in our scenario, our wallet should live in the parent directory. So we have to modify this path in this way. So, and we will use this folder, and we are here now in the CLI, and we are going to use this wallet path here. And then we have to change for our identity creation. We need some things. So first we have to set the path to the user's directory in the crypto config path. So we can replace this config, the path to the user. And then we have to set the correct path to the user's signed cert. We can replace this. And also the path to the key store. So, and that's a little bit, that's a point you have to be aware. So this is the private key from this user. So, but this, all these things, as you see, this is user one, this is user one. So these are the same names and also the same locations. And also the identity level should be user one or oneexample.com. These are default values which we can copy and paste. But this part, this is the private key. And this we have to check the correct version of this private key. And this we can find. So the key store. I think it must be. So, okay, we can do it by hand. This is for examples, this is crypto config. This is SHT, this is crypto config, this is crypto config, this should be peers, this is org1, and this should be users. Then we are here, and we have the user 1, and we need the membership service provider folder, and we need the key store folder. So, and this key. So, and we have to copy this key name and replace it on this position. And we have to replace this as well here. And we can replace the identity label name. So this is the name from the identity, the label name. So, and we can also make a config parameter for the organization, yeah, but in our scenario, we use only the organization one. And with this, we can import an existing identity to our local wallet. And then when we try to import another existing identity, we can change these parameters and this position, and it will work as well. So, and when we now try to execute this, we can do this with the node command and node add to wallet, and then done. This is a good sign. So because the promise is working, and now the console log shows that there is no error because of the catch. So when there were an error, then we will see here an error stack, and we are here in the done position. So I think everything is fine. But we can check. We can use the tree command on our wallet, and now we see we have now 3 different files in our wallet. And as you can see here, we have a public files with the postfix pub and prev. Yeah. So this is the public key. This is in simple words the private key, and this one is very interesting for us because this is a JSON file, and this is a JSON file where some meta informations about this identity. And I will show you. Okay, the time is running. So if it's okay, I will do it again. And I think we need a half hour, a little bit more, 20 minutes. So I will speed up, and then you can see the whole project. Yeah. So, and how we can inspect this file. So this is just the really interesting part. So now we go a little bit back to the wallet, and we switch into this user file. So, and we see this. So, and when we make a cut of this, you see, oh, that's in this file. So, but we cannot read this really. So we can, of course, we can use the Visual Studio Code for this, but I think for this, there is a really cool client application, which is called JQ. And we will use this in later examples. Maybe when you try to extend the Fabric network, you have to also handle with JSON documents. And this is really a cool tool to inspect and to extract files on the command line when you work with JSON documents. And this is a command line JSON parser. And in simple terms, when you use this one, when you call the JQ command, and then this is a dot syntax. So the dot on the first position symbolizes that this is the root, I think. And when you call this, then you see a parsed JSON file. And in this file, you can see the signing identity. So this is the key here. It's the same key, private and public. Yeah. And here is this certificate. And this certificate is now what we are going to inspect. And we would like to see what is inside this certificate. And we cannot read this. So this is base 64 encoded PEM format. And we have to extract this string from this JSON document. And then we have to remove the dots, the leading and the end dots. And then we have to replace the \n with a real new line. So that we will have a real PEM file. And when we have this PEM file, we can use a tool, OpenSSL, to convert this PEM file to a human readable file. And how you can do this, I will show it in a minute now. So, and with this JQ parser, we can also inspect a little bit more. So we can do enrollment. We look this, then you see only the part from the enrollment. You see here an object in the JSON notation, and you can, and we can do it a little bit more detailed. We need the identity, and you see this, and we see also, and this is the way where you can inspect a file with the JQ parser here. So, and that is what we need now. And the first step is that we extract this from the original file. And we can do this in a very simple way. So in the first command, we use, here's the command. This is the dot notation path, which we would like to have. This is our file name. And then we redirect the output from this only to a new file. And we call this with the postfix tab. As you can see, we have now this file extracted. So when we look into this file, we will have the same as we have seen on the console prior. And now we have to replace the dots. And for this, we can use the VI browser, VI editor. So, and we can place this, so back. And we write and quit the file, and the dots are gone. Okay, so, and the next step is to replace this \n with a real new line. And for this, I will use a set command, which you can use always on the command line. And this is something like this. So I think maybe there are better ways to do this. So that's a workaround I have found for myself. But you can do it also with Visual Studio Code and replace all \n and so on. So, but sometimes it's important to know how you can do it on the terminal. And yeah, and with this, we create another file, the final PEM file. Yeah. And now you see the correct version of this PEM certificate. And from this position, we can now convert this certificate in a human readable format. So, and for this, we will use the OpenSSL program. And because of that Fabric use only X509 certificate. Yeah, we can use OpenSSL with the X509 algorithm, and we want to print out the text. And with the in parameter, we say in which file we would like to inspect. And here we go. You see the format of the file. So, but we cannot read here the whole thing. So that's something from the terminal multiplexer. We have to scroll with this. So we can Control P and the FN key, and then we can scroll here. And you see here the certificate. So, and what you can see here is the validity. So you see, by default, you will have a certificate which is valid 10 years. Yeah. You see the issuer, and you see the subject, so this is one. And but not in this case. So when we create a new identity with the Fabric CI client command, or with the Node.js SDK, we can include some affiliations. So affiliations are also a really cool thing for identities. Because of this affiliation, we can, in the chain code development, say, okay, only identities which belongs to the department marketing can read this part of the chain code, or only identities from the department accounting can write in this chain code. And this is from developer perspective interesting. When you know your business logic and you have to know what your Node.js application should know or should can, then you have to know, do I have the rights for this? And in this way, this is a way to check what is the identity and how you can inspect this identity. Okay, so this was a small view in the identity management and how you can inspect such PEM files. So, but I don't want to spend too much time on this, but all the topic Fabric CA and identity management and membership service provider. This is really a complicated and huge topic. So this must be handled in a session or in 2 sessions. So where you can really focus on this kind of topic. But from the developer perspective, it's not so important how. It's only important is the certificate valid, and you can check the validity of a certificate also with the other command. So there is a checked property in the SSL, in the OpenSSL command, and when you use this checked command, and here you can a value, you can give them a value, and this value are in seconds. So when you use this one, so these are the seconds for 1 year, and now you can check, is your certification valid for the moment or in 1 year? So, and then you will see here, certificate will not expire in this amount of seconds. So, and with this command, you can a little bit inspect and a little bit check what is in an identity. Okay. So, the next slides I will skip. So now we have an identity in our wallet. The next thing what we need is the connection profile. So, and the connection profile is also a JSON or a YAML file. So I will use the JSON file, and for this I can use the JQ tool again and check. Path is wrong. Okay, so this is the correct path. So, and here again, this is a JSON file, but this is yeah, but I will show you this in a smaller way. So in this file, we have, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. We have a client section. And in this client section, we have information about the client in general. So we have an organization section. Organization. And in this section, we will find information about the organization. So, and this is the connection portal from organization 1. So, and we see we have 2 peers and we have this certificate authority. And such an information you can find in this document. So we can open this here. You can see it a little bit better way. Can use this one. Stop. And here you can see it in a better way. And that's what I have mentioned earlier. So this certificate is generated in the creation process of the crypto material. And when you change your configuration, then this file will be written new, and then you have to use the the new file. So that's the reason why it's better to link this file and not copy during the development process. In a real scenario, you will have this information on your server. So, and that's the connection profile. So as you can see, the connection profile is only a thing where you can have information about the network organized in basically 4 sections: the client section, the organization section, then the peers section, yeah, and the certified authority section here with the PEM file base 64 encoded format here now. Okay, so, and with this, we should have everything to start develop our Node.js application. And but before we start, I will show you another slide. So the question is, what is the connection between the Node.js and the chain code? So from the developer perspective, you cannot query anything in the blockchain. So you need a permission and you need an identity, and the identity has access rights, has rights to query something, to invoke something, to delete something, or whatever. So, and because of this, for the web developer or for the developer of a Node.js application, he has to know what is the business logic from this chain code. And in our example, we will have 3 endpoints here, the first 2 endpoints are implemented, and the third endpoint, the delete functionality, is not implemented at the moment. So that would be the part when you come in and say, okay, I will try your example, I will try this with the build your first network and try to build your application again. And then I extend your application with this, for this delete, for the remove state endpoint. So that's not implemented. So you can see there's a small homework or training, whatever, and to try, and you can try it, and you can try this. So, and when we have an endpoint here, the first endpoint is this get data, and this get data will query one state. So we'll query the value A or the value from the actor A or the value from the actor P. So, and this is represented in the chain code in the query function. So the chain code, there's a function called query, and the query function does this. And the Node.js endpoint call this query function directly. And for this, we can use a Node.js command from the SDK. This is the contract evaluate transaction method, which is here used. So this is a method which only is for querying data. So only with this transaction method, you cannot submit a transaction, because this method is only used for query data. And then by the such data method, this is a post. So we send a get request, and here we will send a post request, and this post request use in the Node.js in the contract submit transaction method, and this method does all the heavy lifting which we have seen in the overview picture for you, and will give back a value true or false to say, okay, it's okay or it's not okay, your transaction is submitted or not. And the parameters here, you can see query, that's the function name. So in the invoke function in the chain code, we evaluate the function name, and these are the connecting points. So when we call here this query, then we have to use the function name query to come to the function, to the query function in our chain code. And the same is here in the post request. We have to, okay, this is false, not query key. This is a mistake on my side. This is to send to store a key value that I will correct this later. And here with the submit transaction method, we can call the invoke function, but this calls the invoke function in the controller, and then we evaluate again the function name, and then we use the invoke. Yeah, you see a uppercase invoke, and here is a lowercase invoke, so these are not the same. Yeah, and you can look into this chain code underline example underline 02 file. In the FAB example, these are exactly the same calls. And here we have the params, the data we will use, the parameter 1 and the parameter 2 and the value. So the chain code send from A to P 10 units, or from P to A 100 units. So that's what the chain code does here. And this will make the payment of X units from A to P, or from P to A. And the delete state, there is also a delete function, and this deletes an entity from the state. So, and that's not implemented, so maybe that could be your homework. But this is only for preparation. This is only that you know what can you query, and you have to know what is the business logic and what is what the chain code does, which parameter you need, which function names you have to call. So that's an important part to understand what is the chain code for. Okay, so, and now we can finally start our application, and we do it very quickly. So, and the first step is we create an index.js file. So I will do this. So move this. So, and yeah. So the first step in the creation of the index.js file is the requirements section. I have divided this this index.js file, this main file, in different sections, and to explain for what is each section. So these requirements are basic standard requirements for every Node.js application. So we need Express and we need the body parser. So we need the body parser because we will use the post request and to have access to the post values we will send. And then to have a little bit more overview and to exclude the code, I have created for every endpoint an Node.js module that we can exclude the source code and to have a little bit more overview of what's going on. So, but for now we comment this out. And also the connection. So in my example, for this, you can have different approaches to build such an application. So in my application, I have the approach that I will, first I will connect to the Fabric network. And when the Fabric connection is ready, then I will point this connection to every endpoint I have. So I have only one connection, and when the application is running, we don't have to connect and reconnect to this Fabric network. So that's the reason why I have here a separate connection module. Then I have a short config file where we have some config parameters that we can change a little bit. And we have a global gateway variable, which we can see as a pointer. And that's something maybe I need for the development process. So in NodeMoon, it's like that you start your project with NodeMoon, and then you can stop this only when you click Ctrl+C to interrupt this signal. And when that happened, then we don't have a disconnect. We cannot call a disconnect function from the gateway, from the Node.js, from the Fabric gateway. And with this, I can show you how you can interrupt this signal and catch this interrupt signal, and then you can call the disconnect function, and then in the last step, you can exit from this process. So this only the way we have this here. And the next step is that we need the express part, or the express section. So let me copy this in. And here you can see, okay, that's an express application. That's pretty straightforward. So that's how you build an express application. Then we include the body parser, and also that's the URL encoding. I think that's for example, it's not needed, but I think that's standard for every application. And here, this is the part where we use the connect to contract module here. And when this is a promise, so when we start this function, there is a promise, and when this promise is resolved, then we are ready. Then the connection is established. And we have a connection. The result is an object with a gateway and a contract. And the gateway, we point to this global pointer for our exit scenario. And then the connection to the Fabric network is ready. So, and when the connection is ready, I have here the endpoints defined. And in the last step here, we have the start command for the REST API server. So that's also basic for every Node.js Express application. So that's the internal port. And this is the start command for the server. Okay, so we have this. Okay, that's that. And the last part is the exit scenario. And this is fire Ctrl+C to exit NodeMoon. And that's the reason why I have a global pointer to the gateway. And then we can disconnect from the gateway and we exit finally the program here. No. So this now the index.js file should be ready. So what we need is the config.json file now. And this is something like this. So in this configuration, I have all relevant informations for the network. So we have the channel name, we have the chain code ID. The chain code is not called chain code underscore example underscore 02. So in the install and install process, we use the default name is my channel in this way. And we use the username. So that's the label identity, which we have seen in the wallet. And here's the path to the connection profile here. And this is the path to the wallet. So, and then we need the connection file. Connect.js. So, and this is the module which is responsible for the connection to the Fabric network. And as you can see here, we have here an include part, and then we have also here the promise, which I have mentioned here. So yeah, this is the then, and this is the return. And to find the connection or to build the connection, it's really easy. So you don't have to do so much. So we need the wallet. So we create an object from the file system wallet. Now, so first we have to define the path. And with the config parameter here, we can import the config values from the index.js file. And here's the wallet is created. And then we can create the gateway with the gateway class. So we have a gateway. And then we can connect to the gateway. And for the connection to the gateway, we need the wallet. We need the identity from the wallet, which should be used. And here, this is the discovery. So this is what I have said earlier, that the Node.js SDK needs the connection profile with all relevant informations about the network. And with the discovery property here, and when this is enabled, then it looks for the right peer and so on. So, and this parameter is also important to know. This is as localhost. That means when you call it, in my scenario, I have the Fabric network locally installed and the Node.js application is also locally. And then we can say as localhost is true. But when we have the scenario that the Fabric network is on a remote server, on the other server, and the Node application is also on the other server, which would be in a real case scenario, then we have to set this to false. And the next step is here that we get the channel, the network channel. And yeah, and with this channel, on this channel, we want the chain code. Yeah, it's the chain code name, and this is the final contract. So, and now we have the contract. We have a gateway for exit scenario, and we have the contract. And both will be in this. I will do both as a pointer in this object. And when it's done, then the promise will resolve it, and we will have it here in the connection result. And then the connection should be established and the network is ready. And then this is basically the same as we have to do in every Express application. And here it starts. So now when I have nothing forgotten, so we can, one point left. So we need the test. So when can we test this? New file, specs.js. So, and this is the, so we have 3 tests or 3 API calls. So I use this, as I said, as a replacement for curl or for the Postman. And so it's a little bit easier for me to do this and to store also the payload here, and it's for development better to test with this kind of setup. So the first call is only if this is the API server running, and so we can check if this now works. So with the skip command, we can skip this test. So we uncomment this. So we will only execute now this test, the first test, and see if the API, if the REST API is running, and how the connection is established. But to do this, we need a small modification in the package.json file, because we want to start our test through the npm command, and we have to replace in the script section with the test name the mocker command, and we call here our spec file. So that's a timeout. So as I started developing this example, I had in my first version there, I connected in every endpoint to the fabric network. And after I have received my data, I disconnected it from the network. And this took some time. So on this local machine, it took 5 seconds. We will see it a little bit later. And I thought, okay, that was too slowly. And to work around this, I have found a solution that I connected to the fabric network on the boot time of the Node.js application, and share the connection between all endpoints. And when we do this, we will see that the request and also the submit process will take only 2 seconds, a little bit more than 2 seconds. So with this, we can improve the performance a little bit. Okay, so, and now, big moment. So we go here. So now we are here. And then we can use NodeMoon and start the index there. And there's a small error. Okay, so the path to the connection file is wrong. So, and I think we have this. No. So this should be the file path. Oh, now the path is correct. And you see, the connection to the fabric network is ready, and the API server started listening on port 3000. So And now we are here. So this is the console log print for this. And this is the console log print for this. So no execution. So I think the connection is established and the network should work now. So Q1, so, and now we can test the first endpoint with the npm test command. And you see, okay, hello Fabric API. So, okay, what does this mean? That means that our REST API is working. The connection to the Fabric network is also established, but we don't have now a call to the blockchain itself. And for this, we have to activate our endpoints. So first we try to query something. And for this, I have, now you see this file is missing. We create a file, it's called index query.js. And in this file, we will copy this part of information. And okay, everything works. And here you see the model where we can query the chain code. And first we need the query key. The query key in the specs, we will use now this one. So we send a key. Yeah. So we have a GET request, and this is our path. And as a parameter of this GET request, we have a key. The key could be A or B. And we have the key B for this moment. And through the request object, from express and the parameters object, we can get the key. And with this key value, so in my case, I bring it to lowercase. And yeah, so that's preparation for this. And finally, the only thing you have to do to query this value now is to call this command. And that's really, really cool. So one single command is used to query the parameter A or P, or the value from A or P. Yeah? And this is in the same way as you have shown you in the slides. So we have this elevation transaction function from the contract object. And we have to say, okay, we will use from the central invoke function, the query function, and we will want the information from this key. And this is also a promise by default from the SDK. So we can use the await keyword to wait until the asynchronous promise is finished. So when you use the await here, you have to use here also async. So because that's a Node.js thing, and this is the result. But the result will be in a buffer format. So, and then you have to convert this buffer to a human readable string, but it is done through the buffer has also a toString method, and you can do this with toString here now. And here I construct the final return object with the key and the value. And also in the case when you query maybe C, then we will come in the catch file, and then you see there's an error, and through the try and catch, we don't break the application. Okay, so this is done. So this is activated, and now in the specs we have it also uncommented. And now when we try the test again, and you see here we go, the value, the key B has this value, and now we can play. And we look A, and you see the restart of the Node.js application here, and the key A has this value. And you see, so simple is it to query a contract. And in the same way, we can do it with the set. So this is the last step in this demonstration now. The index set file is with this content. So, and that's basically the same. So the structure of such a module is the same. So it's also an async process. We have also an await here. And the method we are going to use from the contract class is submit transaction. And we want the invoke function from the global invoke function. And we use the parameters P1, P2, and the value. So, and these parameters are provided from the request object and the body object, which is apart from the body parser. And so we can read this, we can use it in these variables, and we can use in the same way the value. So then we do the lowercase thing. And yeah, and that's it. So then we can submit this, and we call the invoke function. And that's the parameter sequence here is the same as we can do it on the command line when we use the CLI container. And when you can do it in this way, then you can use the same sequence, and we can do it also here in a Node.js application. And then if it's done, I have here a small return word and also the exception. So, and now we can skip this. So now we try to send 10 units from P to A. So, okay. And when we call our test again, and you see it takes 2 seconds, and you see transaction has been successfully submitted. Yeah. And we can repeat this. So, and you see here you have 100, you have 110, and so on. 120. And yeah, so I think we are finally in the end of this presentation. I will post the slides later in the Slack channel. So you can find here also some useful links. This is the path to the link to the GitHub repo. So you can clone it, you can play with this example, you can try to reproduce it, and you can try to extend this, this example with the delete functionality. This is the path to the Node.js SDK release 1.1.4. And there are some points which I have not shown but I will show you the slides for this now. So because these are also very useful informations to this. So this is a slide where you can see how you can use the Fabric CA client to register and enroll a new user. So I think you can do it copy and paste. So this will work. The only thing here is that in my example, I don't know why, but you have to set in the localhost file the CA, the path to the local CA file, and that's the only pitfall I had. So to the wallet we have seen. So the only thing we have not seen here is the enroll admin and the register. So we can have a short final view on that. So, but it's basically the same. So this is the script which you can use to enroll an admin user. So, and for every transactions on the Fabric CA, you have to be an admin of this certified authority. And to be so, you have to enroll it first. And that's the script where you can do this. So here, the first step is you have to set the path to your connection profile. So that's only other representation to resolve the path. So you can correct this in any way you want. So that should be okay, this word, because we are using the CA from Arc 1, that's the same name, that's also the same. So here you have to correct the path to our wallet in this way, because we are in the CLI folder. We need the admin, so the admin name is correct. So, and this is the check. So it can only enroll one admin. So if one identity is already enrolled, so in every script you can find this exists scenario, and then you cannot enroll it twice. So you have to delete this, and when you don't have a problem with the max enroll parameter in the Fabric CA, and then you can enroll it again. And here you can have, and that's the tricky part. So to use this, you must have the information from the admin, and that's, I don't know if when you come from the developer perspective, when I see the Node.js developer view, so I need an identity. So it's the same for me as a developer. When I say, okay, I have my SQL database or MongoDB or whatever, and for this I need my credentials and my path to this database. So from the developer perspective, I think the best option is to use the option A. So that the administrator enroll this identity with his tools and gave you this identity, and you can add this identity with the option A to your local wallet. So, and in this way, you don't have to know about the admin name, and also not known at the admin credentials, your secret, your password. And yeah, and then you enroll it. So, and with this, when you have done this, you can use the second script. And this is a two-part script, I think. So because the first is always you have to register a new user, and then you can enroll the new user. And the part here is, so here's also you need the admin identity. So to do this, you need the admin identity. This is represented here. And this is the affiliation, you see. So this is this would be also an interesting part to analyze, because we can write chain code, and with the chain code, in the chain code, we can say that only members, only identities who belongs to the department 1 or to the department 2 can read this, can execute this query, can do this functionality, and so on. So this is really an interesting part to play a little bit without this. And here you see, this is the enrollment ID, and this is the client. So that's also important in many online or in tutorials, or you find the type user. So, and in the Fabric CR documentation, you will not find the type user. So the type is client. So, and that's really important, that this is a client and not the user. We see Fabric doesn't see a use, an identity, a client identity as a user. He sees it as a client, and the client could be now the Node.js application. So this is an important part. So there is no role user. The role is client, peer, orderer, but not user. And this is the secret. So this is the enrollment, the register process. And that's also an important part to mention that when you work with the Fabric CA, first you have to register an identity. That could be the client, that could be the peer, that could be orderer, and then you will have a secret. And this secret is only used for the enrollment. So, and then you enroll this identity, and then you have an enrolled identity. And with this information, we can use the credit identity function and create a new user identity. And then we can use this user identity to add this to the wallet and give them the wallet name user1. And yeah, I think that's it. So yeah, the only thing you have to do here is to correct the paths and yeah, and fill in the affiliation, the user, the enrollment ID, the type is always client in this case, and I think that's it. And in this way, you can create a new user and a lot of users. And there are maybe some problems in this way. So yeah, that's also a tricky part. So what happens if you enroll a user again? So then sometimes you can face in this error message is already registered. And to handle this scenario, you can do different things. So, and that's the last part I'm going to show you now on the slides. So when this happened for the development, for the testing, then you can connect to the Docker container with the exec command. Then you have to install SQLite free. You can do it. It's not pre-installed in the CLI container. And then you switch in the root, in the home folder from the Fabric CI. And there is a file, it's called Fabric CI server DB, and that's a SQLite file. And with the SQL free command, we can enter this file and we can administrate this SQLite database. And then you have to delete this certificate. You can delete this certificate and you can delete the user, and then you can register or enroll the user again. So this is one way to solve this solution, but I think there are also noch another way. Okay, so I have to say sorry, it takes a little bit longer than expected, but I think that was a great session. So you have seen a lot. I will publish the slides later in the Slack channel, and I thank you for your attention.